Good morning, Miramar, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tamara G. As always, you can check us out on all of our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of Miramar. And with us today, we have a very special old friend of mine. And we are so happy to have him because he's doing something very important. He and his organization, OIC of South Florida. It is the Middle Class Summit. And with us today, we have Newton Sannon. He is the president and CEO of OIC of South Florida. So welcome to the show, Newton.
Thank you, Tamara. It's so good to see you, and I appreciate you having me.
No problem, no problem. So I guess the first thing we have to talk about is OIC, because a lot of
Sure.
people may not even know about OIC and what you guys do as far as training people in our community, getting back into the workforce, giving them new skills. Tell us about that.
Sure. And first of all, thank you so much for having me. So OIC was established in 1964 in Philadelphia by the late, great Reverend Leon Sullivan, who I still contest as our country's and the world's probably most understated civil rights pioneer. Reverend Sullivan just felt like with the gross enormities of challenges of the world, a job is the best social service in the world. Having a good career is so much more than about revenue. It's about feeding your families, of course, but it's about dignity, it's about respect, it's about modeling a behavior that is ready model for your children for many years to come that eradicates these vicious cycles of poverty. But access to credentialing isn't the biggest challenge oftentimes in marginalized communities. It's also barriers of over incarceration, it's teen pregnancy, it's young people who may have lost their way or their aspirations were stunted because of blight in the community that they came up in, so that what is possible for your life and their aspirations are sometimes dimmed. So what you would call a community-based workforce development organization whose intention is to go into these communities where there's oftentimes blight, challenge, and lack of opportunity, and sometimes a little bit of hope, and not only offer them a labor market informed credentials, but other support services and eradicating barriers that activate them in terms of becoming a true productive members of communities.
And you mentioned some of those things. You mentioned the poverty, possible lack of education or not fulfilling that education. So at OIC, do you guys do? Can I get my GED there?
Sure.
Can I learn how to do some type of trained skill that we
Sure.
need in South Florida? I don't know, like fixing air conditioners,
That's right. That's
something
right.
like that.
No, no, absolutely. Great question. I think we realize our mission in three different facets. First, starting with the young people. We serve about 8,000 young people in Dade and Broward counties. We have operations both. And then we like to do what I like to call, Tamara, to guide their aspirations. What do I mean by that? So often all of our lives we're asked, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? But if you think about it, the ratio of counselor, career counselor to student in our K through 12 system can range from 1 to a 500 ratio, 1 to 700 in some school districts. So one of the most important things you do, discover your innate talent and abilities, and then what opportunities that come in line with those respective innate talents and abilities, and then what it takes to prepare, and then a plan to get there. So with such high ratios, the rigor that is available to have a true diligent process for young people to navigate through their career paths is oftentimes shorted. That's not a knock on our school systems at all. I work closely with both superintendents of Dade and Broward. They're partners of ours, and I'm speaking at the summit. But sometimes they're ill-equipped with the resources to really, really put the rigor behind it. So we really work with young people, an evidence-based approach, really helping them to have an informed idea about what their career paths might be for them. So we ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? There's some rigor behind that. Secondarily, we are a licensed vocational training institute with the Florida Department of Education, CIE, which is the Commission for Independent Education. That means we offer 17 labor market informed credentials to help people come into the workplace, where the jobs are heading. We're not an organization that believes that you train in hope. We've done the due diligence. We've engaged various sectors at a federal, state, and local level to assess the way the jobs are going. And we're getting people the requisite skills to compete for those jobs. But in large part, because we tend to focus on marginalized communities, it's not just access to credentials. So we offer the case management and support services to help mitigate the barriers that could impede economic workforce and in turn coming to the middle class.
Right. And so in Florida, that can look like a lot of things. We're always building some type of building or
No
construct.
doubt.
They are still working on the Fort Lauderdale Convention Center and have been
That's
for.
right.
But with that, it's not just, building a building, it's everything that comes with that. Somebody's got to lay the carpet, somebody's got to do the electrical, somebody's got to do
Right.
the plumbing, somebody's got to do the air conditioning, that type of thing. So there are many vocational, I guess, jobs that people can do, but you just have to find out what is best for that person.
No doubt. No doubt about it. And that's why we are so intentional when I start off talking about labor market informed jobs, that where they're going to be opportunity. Another part of the barriers in some respects for our adult populations is not everybody has the luxury to go to college for 4 years and while they figure out how they're going to pay their bills. And so we try to find the most expedient, less moderate to high paying jobs that people can get into with not necessarily requiring 4 years of an investment to get to college before you can come into the labor market. Now, I want to be clear. There's a big narrative around college, no college. I think people just have to see what's best for them. It's all circumstantial based on people's economic position, where they're at in life, if they can afford to do that. I'm a fan of college. I went to college, but it's not for everybody in terms of their path to coming into the workforce. And so labor market informed credentials going to give you a good wage, but also there's a career trajectory where there's some opportunity for upward mobility, sustainability. One of the things we're doing a lot of analysis on and work on is you think about the advancement of AI and how it's informing the kind of jobs that will evolve, the
Mhm.
jobs that may go away. So that's one thing we don't want to ignore. And our position has been through several big investments I'll talk about is like in the 2000, the dot-com era, a lot of people got real wealthy in Silicon Valley. And our people was chasing the train of opportunity, say, hey, what about us? What about us? We believe our position is to convene for our people, intercede for our people, to be at the table with these sectors, get the requisite credentials, offer them to our folks so they can be competitive in the workplace.
All right. And with that, if you're just tuning in, we are speaking with Newton Sannon. He is the president and CEO of OIC of South Florida, and they have a really big middle class summit that is coming up October 2nd and 3rd at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. And I have to ask this question, first of all, Newton, who and what is the middle class anymore? Because,
Yeah, yeah.
we're still trying to figure that out in 2024.
Well, I'll tell you, and I promise for those who are listening, Tamara and I didn't practice staging that question, but you just alluded to the value proposition of why we decided to do this. As I said earlier, we're a community-based workforce development organization fostering economic mobility, especially in marginalized communities. And this really vision came about in 2016. I said to our board, look, our blocking and tackling fundamental work is always going to be training young people, guiding their aspiration, providing labor market informed credentials. But there's so many contributing factors that could either help or impede our work. You need a collective ecosystem all band together with a consensus, to your point, about what the destination, in this case, the middle class is, to be aligned to have the fertile ecosystem to have a real strong middle class. And so oftentimes I would hear presidential candidates talk about we want to build a middle class, we want to build a middle class, but they never defined it. And I said, well, just a measure of intellectual curiosity, if you're trying to build the middle, you must be talking about people below it. Well, those are our peeps, right? And I
Mhm.
said, so there's alignment with the value proposition of building a middle class. It's mission related. And I felt like, in addition to our offering programs and training, to be a convener and to activate the ecosystem, to be mindful and intentional about building a middle class is what we wanted to do. We recognize you got to have housing, affordable housing, that is, which we know is a big issue in South Florida and across the country. You got to have the K through 12 system in alignment. You got to have higher ed, workforce organizations, healthcare, childcare, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't have either one of these sectors defining the question, what does it mean to be middle class, and they're a healthy and positive contributor, or could be, you'll never get there, let alone all of these sectors really convening and an alignment and a consensus about what it's going to take if we all contribute to first define what it means to middle class, and we all can decide as a sector and segment of our respective communities how to get there. So that's our value proposition. To one, elevate the consciousness, to first define, align, and activate all things necessary to have a strong economic ecosystem that will produce a strong middle class.
But okay, and I love that discussion and what is going to be happening on October 2nd and 3rd. But just in my little world here, and for people who are
Sure.
watching, $60,000 used to be middle class for a
Yep.
single person. If you were balling, if you were making $60,000.
That's right. That's right.
If your mate was making 60,000, now y'all are making $120,000.
Yeah.
Now in Broward County and even in Miami-Dade County, they will give you some grant money now if you're making over 100, I think it's 120 or 140,
Yeah.
because they're realizing that housing is so expensive here that, people who used to make six figures, the low six figures, what is that considered now?
That's
I
right.
don't even
That's
know if
right.
is that considered middle class because things are so expensive. But
No
here
doubt.
in South Florida.
Yeah. So what a phenomenal point you make. And that's part of what's fleeting the definition of middle class, because it's in some respects this iterative process of engaging sectors. I was watching a segment on CNN this past weekend, and it was talking about how a lot of corporations, as a result of COVID, and they would say supply chains were an issue, and it substantially raised costs, right? Okay, maybe because we know COVID was a major disruptor globally, economically
Absolutely.
speaking, et cetera. But now that a lot of those supply chains issues have settled, are corporations reducing their prices? Not so much. And so there's so many contributing factors that's driving the stability or instability of what it means to be middle class. Therein lies the value proposition of our summit. One. Point two, it's a relative position. Obviously, if you have no children, there could be one segment or price point, salary point that could bring you to middle class. If you have one, respectively, two, three, four, five, naturally that position, i.e., expense, goes up substantially. And so it really is a relative factor. And I'm not going to say any more than that, because if you want to find out on October 2nd and 3rd, we hope you will join us and get more elaborate detail, because I don't claim, nor does OIC claim to have the answer. But we believe it was our rightful position from a mission-related standpoint to convene a community to sort through all the nuance, because it is very nuanced.
Mhm.
In one respect, capitalism has its healthy place. Nobody wants to stifle the extent to which business can make money, but at what cost? And how do we balance this out? And if businesses industry wants to attract and retain their talent, but if they can't afford to live here, then maybe you ought to look in the mirror and say what are the contributor you are or a hindrance you are to a stable workforce, a stable middle class, et cetera. So a very nuanced conversation, but it's also why we got what we think is some of the best speakers and contributors to speak to these issues, and from a solution-oriented standpoint, so we can come out with some action items to go forward.
And we're going to talk about some of those speakers that are going to be there at the OIC of South Florida Middle Class Summit that is happening October 2nd and 3rd at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. But, even a story that I saw today, Newton, was about Boeing. Of course, we know that their employees are on strike. The people who make the planes have
Yep,
decided to
yep,
go on strike.
yep.
And Boeing has offered them what they consider their last offer, which is a 30% raise increase and I believe it was a $6,000 bonus. So
Mhm.
everybody knows that if you are, putting a plane together, you're probably making about $100,000.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're willing to give you $130,000 per person now, and we're just
Mhm.
doing averages.
Yeah, yeah,
So it goes back to what you were saying. How much money can you possibly be making as a corporation that you're willing to give your workforce a 30% increase on what
that's
they're
right.
already making? That means you
Yeah,
were you were making way more and you just weren't, it wasn't trickling down. And we'll
yeah.
say it
No,
like
yeah. No,
that.
no, no, no doubt. And I think that was the reckoning that took place during COVID. there was a term that I wasn't crazy about the term. It was called the Great Resignation.
Hmm.
You know, what happened is COVID shook up people's cognizance in so many different ways. There was a moment of introspection about the loyal, quote unquote, loyalty from corporation to employee, was then triggered to these resignations where people were really saying, you know what? Wait a minute. What's most important to me? My health, my family, working from home, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it was a great reckoning that took place, that's still lingering, and I don't think it'll all ever be the same. So I think things like the Boeing incident, and I can't speak for Boeing, but presumably just a matter of deductive reasoning, you have to believe corporations are starting to realize it can't just be about a small margin of shareholders versus the masses who, if they don't can't afford your services, but you're also always yielding to a small set of board members or shareholders just to fatten their pockets, then you're going to have an issue of establishing a strong workforce to even have a business. So those are the intersects of what I think the value proposition of our summit is. We have a panel called Taking Care of Business. And it's a play on words where some strong business people on there who are one to talk about their challenges from a workforce standpoint, but also to bring them to a place of introspection and say, so what are you doing about it? Look, gone are the days where you sit on the sideline and just demand a better workforce. What are you contributing to it? Are you offering competitive wages? Do you offer health care? Do you make provisions for paternity leave, maternity leave, all the things that COVID didn't care who you are, what class, what race, what gender, what belief you had. It shook us all up. And I think now we're finding ourselves at a very introspection point as a country, but even the world, now that we have a global economy, for employers to take a look in the mirror, for people to think about how they prioritize what it means to be prepared for the workforce, et cetera, et cetera. Hence the value proposition to bring everybody together and have this conversation.
And really, this summit is for everyone. I mean,
No
it's
doubt.
gender specific. It's not culture. It's not race specific. It is
No doubt.
who cares about the middle class, because
No
truly
doubt.
we're the ones who hold up the rest of the country.
No
You
doubt
know,
about it.
yeah. So everyone should come. Now, how can people get more information, or if they want to register? And is there a cost for this?
Yeah, so people can join and go on our website at www.oicsfl.org. And for sure, they'll find not only the speaker lineup each day, the times, et cetera. If people can't work both days, they can come to a particular segment of the event.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you, we got a heck of a lineup. I think people will find great value. So www.oicsfl.org, Sarah Frank Larry, and or our number at the office is 954-563-3535. Again, 954-563-3535. They can get all the information they want there.
Well, let's talk about some of those speakers, because I know
Sure.
you mentioned that you're going to have Miami-Dade's superintendent of school. You're going to have Broward County's superintendent of schools.
Sure.
Any business people as well to be speaking?
Absolutely, absolutely. Read a case of Rick Case. It will be there. We got some folks from the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. So that's the economic development organization. It's the convener of all the top businesses. Same thing with the Beacon Council. You got Rick Beasley of Career Source South Florida too, who also corrals the business community around all things jobs and workforce. We got the Assistant Secretary of Labor for Employment and Training Administration, Jose Javier Rodriguez. We got the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Labor. We have Dr. Dave Altick, who's the Chief Economist for the Federal Reserve Bank, who we're going to start off with Dave and I on a fireside chat, defining what it means to be middle class and all the contributing factors to curate a broader ecosystem. As you stated, both superintendents, President Madam Pumariega, President of Miami-Dade College, you just and on, Mayor of Broward County, Oliver Gilbert, who of course is the chair of the Miami-Dade County Board of Commissioners. And so just a broad spectrum of policymakers, business people, sector people, practitioners. But here's what I think the real treat is. Tamara, I think so often we as professionals who've been blessed and figured this thing out in some respects, we work to stand in the gap for people who need opportunity and access and preparedness. and we get in our fancy offices, we figure out what we think is wrong with them and what they need. And we say, we've figured it out, take two of these and call me in the morning, right? What I'm proud about, not only on our board of directors, our staff makeup, but also on the summit, the voice of the people around the summit. Now, one of the flagship programs we do at OIC is working with returning citizens, people who've had some brush with the law. And you have a gentleman on the panel who did 31 years in prison, 31 years, only to learn, oops, my bad, you didn't really do it, right? And those are the kind of nuances people don't talk about. The over incarceration of our country, and our state is no different. All those people make up for what could be a more readily available workforce, which helps seed business to grow, thrive, fertilize said ecosystem, hopefully then bring down costs because there's a robust volume of business going on. So all these introspective moments bring us to a place to say, what are all the nuanced contributing factors that we need to fix? Because it is a complex issue, no doubt about it.
Oh, absolutely. And this 2-day summit, October 2nd and 3rd, will definitely get the ball rolling and at least the conversation started. Yeah, that's a whole population of people who are now getting out from being incarcerated. Some of them do have some skills, some of them don't. And as someone who's been in prison for 31 years, they really are starting from scratch, particularly in when it comes to, I guess, electronics and, the
Right.
computers and internet and things like that, that they need the classes. They need to be shown how to, work in this. Trust me, I have family members and
Yeah.
that, had never really been on the internet when they got out in 2016 and now doing much better,
No
working
doubt.
every
No
day,
doubt.
being a productive member of society. But it was a learning curve and it's scary too.
Yeah.
Newton, talk about that because people are trying to learn things and trying to get back into society. They're trying to be, productive members of society, and
No doubt.
they maybe not know how to do that.
Yeah, and I don't want to be all doom and gloom here. I will tell you, there is a lot of promise, and I mean I'm at the front of this in so many ways. So I'll tell you, I serve on Secretary Ricky Dixon, who's the Secretary of Corrections for our state of Florida. I serve on the Florida Foundation for Correctional Excellence. It's the board that's the strategy arm for workforce training, getting people to have successful reentry. And like, I'll be candid with you, I've served on set with several secretaries and many of them have had good intention, and several of them have done really good work. I got to tell you, man, I really, really believe in Secretary Dixon's vision. I chair the workforce strategy for the entire state of Florida for the board for this Department of Correction and this foundation. And I will tell you, he listens. I've seen the action behind the commitment. We just approved on our budget 200 to 400 new vocational instructors. There's some who will be working with our organization in this regard. So I'm seeing a substantial paradigm shift in some respects by necessity, because business and industry has said, we just don't have the people. Now they're willing to consider an alternative workforce, an untapped labor market. People will have blemishes. And what I will tell you in my 23 years having served at OIC as CEO here, folks who return from incarceration, they're hungry. They want opportunity. They're humble in a lot of cases. In fact, we have a for-profit arm of our corporation called our social enterprise. We have 123 people that we've hired who worked for us carrying certain micro enterprises. So I'm proud that not only are we trying to create jobs in terms of working with the businesses, we've created our own jobs where we're hiring the people we're training. And I will tell you, all these things give me what good hope about the future.
Mhm.
Secretary's vision, who I think is very genuine and sincere, our opportunities to hire some of the people we're training. But this summit is also intended to proselytize, help inform, and change the minds of people to see that there are resources, because some people have a reservation and trepidation by hiring returning citizens. We'll partner with you. We'll share that quote unquote risk that you think you have, first by being very transparent about where we think they are in terms of their commitment and readiness, and not just temperamentally, but their skill set. So a lot of good things happening, Tamara, but these things are not static. They're iterative, and you just got to keep working on it because things change.
And that is why the OIC of South Florida Middle Class Summit is happening October 2nd and 3rd at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Hollywood. Again, if you want more information, OICSFL, So that's South Florida. OICSFL.org to register to come. As a layperson, you're more than welcome to come. As a business person, you are more than welcome to come. But please sign up. Again, it's October 2nd and 3rd at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel. It should be a very wonderful summit and in trying to figure out how to help everybody in South Florida, not just the middle class, but literally everybody, because it all works together. And that's what all things work together for the
No
good.
doubt, no doubt, no doubt about it.
Well, thank you so much, Newton Sannon. He is the president and CEO of OIC of South Florida. And I did good, right? I didn't call you
Yeah,
by,
yeah,
by
yes,
my
yes,
print
you did.
name.
Yes, you did. And listen, hey, then Tamara, a shout out to you. You've been such a pillar of just bright, good spirit and great communication and delivering what people need to know in the community. So we celebrate you too, my friend. You are phenomenal, and we celebrate you as well. Okay.
Thank you very much, Newton. I appreciate that. Love to the family, to my new boyfriend, Ethan. Tell
That's
him
right.
hi.
I will. I will. I
What is he now?
will.
Two months, right?
I think this Friday he'll be 2 months.
2 months. Oh my
That's
gosh.
right.
Love him, love
That's
him,
right.
love him. So love you
Yes,
too.
indeed.
Shout out to everyone in the Sannon household. And thank you so very much, Newt Sannon, the president and CEO of OIC of South Florida. Thank you for watching. I'm Tamara G. Until next time. See you.
Thank you.